A new student becomes infatuated with his 40-year-old married teacher, who has a 5-year-old daughter. He relentlessly pursues her, but she resists his advances until, eventually, she succumbs to his persistent charm. Lana gives in to her impulses, quickly realizing she's made a terrible error. Lana works as a teacher at a secondary school. One day, she's distributing exam papers and giving instructions when she notices that everyone is writing except Benny. This charming student constantly watches her, trying to allure her. His sole focus in class is observing his attractive teacher, which makes her uneasy. She tries her best to ignore him, but his gaze is captivating. She feels an irresistible urge to connect with him, but the fact that he's her student makes it incredibly complicated. After classes one day, she decides to confront Benny and ask about his behavior. When she does, he asks why she's approaching him. She explains her concern for him, wanting to know if he's facing any difficulties, but he remains silent. She places her hand on his knee and asks if he needs help. Benny interprets this as a sign of her interest, smiling as he looks at her hand, which she quickly withdraws. Benny advises her to be transparent about her true intentions. She simply tells him she wants to see him succeed academically, as his grades are crucial for his future. Benny, skeptical, tells her to stop pretending and reveal the real reason for her call. Lana stays silent, stands, and makes to leave, citing an upcoming meeting. Although she hasn't voiced her feelings, she now feels undeniably drawn to him. To clear her head, she goes for a walk, but her thoughts keep returning to him. The next day at school, after classes, she spots Benny's bag on the floor. She picks it up and places it on his desk. Seizing the opportunity, she opens it and pulls out Benny's jumper. She sniffs it, lost in thoughts of him. Afterward, she puts the jumper back and heads to the restroom. There, Benny startles her. He steps back, then moves closer, attempting to touch her chest. She abruptly pushes him away, telling him to stop or he'll face expulsion. Benny confidently tells her he knows she desires him. She returns to him, informing him that she'd never consider such things with any student, and if he tries anything again, she report him to the authorities. The next day, Benny approaches her, expressing his wish to see her again, but she firmly refuses, stating that what happened was a mistake that won't be repeated, or so she claims. She raises her voice, sternly telling Benny it's time for him to stop harassing her. Later, in the car park, she notices her car's wing mirror is damaged. She realizes Benny likely did this in retaliation. With insufficient evidence, she chooses not to act and drives home. Once home, her husband Wade notices the car's damage and asks about it. She simply explains a minor bump with the traffic light pole. He expresses doubt, but Lana insists her explanation is true. Wade, still skeptical, drops the conversation. The next morning, Lana assigns students the task of writing a cover letter and offers to answer questions. Benny raises his hand and asks if she received any special favors from the head teacher to get her position. This remark causes other students to laugh and mock Lana. Upset, she threatens Benny, saying she report his behavior to the school management. He ignores her words, responding with a rude gesture and insults. In anger, she throws his bag out of the classroom and orders him to leave. The other students side with Benny, interrupting her attempts to respond by throwing objects. Her frustration boils over, and she hastily leaves the classroom. She leaves school and goes home. Later that day, while teaching her daughter, her phone rings repeatedly without an answer on the other end. She immediately suspects Benny is behind the calls. The next morning, upon arriving at school, she sees him already seated in the classroom, which makes her very uncomfortable and furious. She decides to leave, feigning illness, and spends time by the lake. Her husband sees she's upset and asks if something's wrong. Something serious happened at school, but she lies, saying everything is fine. The next day, she skips classes again to go to the lake and then enters a museum to clear her mind. However, she realizes Benny is following her everywhere, making her nervous. Despite her attempts to avoid him, he confronts her in the museum lift, expressing his desire for her to return to school. Unable to resist his advances, she succumbs to a passionate kiss. That night, Lana is tormented by a disturbing dream. She's drowning while her family watches, powerless to help. The following morning, she goes for a jog. She appears to have devised a plan and feels remorse for deceiving her husband. She's determined to get rid of Benny at all costs. To achieve her goal, she steals the exam papers from the school cupboard and plants them in Benny's coat while he's out for lunch. Her plan succeeds, and Benny is expelled from school for stealing exam papers. Even though she managed to get rid of him and there's no one else at school to make her life difficult, she can't stop thinking about him and starts to regret her actions. She often finds herself dreaming of him and reminiscing about their time together. One day, while she's in a bookshop to buy a gift for her daughter, Rachel, her daughter suddenly vanishes. She searches frantically everywhere in the bookshop. Panicked, she calls the police for help and asks to view the CCTV footage. Watching the footage, she discovers that Benny was also present and secretly observing. She realizes with horror that Benny followed her daughter outside. After a brief period of intense anxiety, she gets a call. Her daughter is home safe. As she sleeps that night, she senses someone else's presence in her house and panics, thinking it's Benny. The sounds of the door opening and closing due to the wind amplify her fear. She locks the door for comfort but still dreams of Benny, living out her fantasies with him. But even after his expulsion from school, she remains terrified of him and can't stop thinking about him. Finally, she decides to drive to his place. After following him into a deserted area, she runs him over with her car. After the impact, she takes a deep breath, showing her relief at finally having eliminated Benny.